The journey is conversations with ordinary people about stories of transformation and how we may have had setbacks in our life and how we persevered through those, how we've learned from those obstacles, and how they've maybe helped us on our path today. Well, welcome to The Journey. My name is Kevin Polky, and I am the host of The Journey. And today we have a special guest, an individual that I've just met probably in the last year or so, and got to listen to her speak at my church or our church probably a couple months ago. So, Kaylene Groh, thank you for joining us on The Journey and being able to spend some time with us. So,
Yeah,
welcome.
thanks so much, Kevin. So excited to be here.
Yeah. So, Kayleen, whenever we have a guest on, especially someone new to the journey, I always start off with asking a question of just to get to know you as a person and who you are and what kind of makes you tick. So, what does Kayleen do when you have an opportunity to have fun? What do you do for fun?
Sure, great question. If you ask any of my staff, one of the things I'm constantly talking to them about is the fact that context matters. So I love that we're starting in this place. Goodness, if I have a couple of minutes for fun, I'm most likely playing pickleball. That's been a newer passion of mine. Or more recently, we have a family trip coming up. So just doing a lot of vacation planning for that. I love making sure that we have, all the best experiences pre-planned and all navigated and mapped out. So that's been a lot of fun dreaming about summer plans.
Awesome. So, where I'm assuming this is you and your family are going
Mhm.
to go on a family vacation. Where are you guys going?
Yeah, so it's a larger family vacation. So we're going to have, siblings and their families and everybody coming together. We're going to go to Utah. So we've been trying to hit some of the national parks. So really looking forward to that.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like a great. In the couple times I've been to Utah, it's absolutely beautiful. So you
Yeah.
guys should definitely enjoy that opportunity to be out there. And when you speak
Yeah.
of family, maybe start us off and tell us a little bit about your family as it exists here in Rockford, and then where are you from? And yeah, kind of just give us a little background about
Yeah.
that.
Sure. I always say I am a proud resident of Rockford for the past 19 years. I was quote unquote recruited here by my husband, John. He is born and raised Rockford resident, and we met, goodness, about 21 years ago and started dating, and then the rest is history, right? Married
Mhm.
19 years. So have loved this community and being a part of it. It now feels like home. But where I was originally born and raised was on a farm in Kansas. And, I think that was really formative to who I am and kind of how I approach things. One of four sisters, so a larger family of six. Um, and yeah, just kind of that whole farm community and the community I grew up in really informed kind of who I became and how I think often of community. So those were really formative.
And this is your parents' farm, and was it a
Mhm.
multi-generational farm, or was it your parents first started it, or how was that?
Yeah, so my dad grew up, actually, both my parents grew up in farm families. My mom kind of more on the dairy side, and then my dad, cattle, grain farming, et cetera. So he had several siblings as well. So when it was his time to kind of grow up and start his own place and his own journey, he moved away from the family farm, but certainly was in the same area.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I know that I have a couple clients that I've worked with that are multi-generational farm families. And just recently in January, I had an opportunity to be the keynote speaker for an organization at their winter conference called Uncommon Farms.
Hmm.
And that was an amazing opportunity. It's an organization that is the reason why they brought me in was they are working toward wanting to increase awareness around mental health in farm families and in
Hmm.
farming organizations. And this Uncommon Farms, they are attempting to um, bring farm families together to to help them with things that they may not know. It could be from a legality standpoint, from an accounting standpoint. It could be any of those operational aspects, as well as providing support um, as throughout the whole organization. So it's been an interesting experience working with them and working with some of the farm families I have over the few years I've been doing this.
Yeah, I think that's so wonderful that that sort of organization exists. So during my childhood was right when the farm crisis of the 1980s hit.
Mm,
And so, that was like a very traumatic time across the farming community. I think across the nation, about a third of all family farms went under during that time period.
mm.
So just a lot of chaos and all of that. So, I could see where organizations like that would really come into play and be very helpful.
Well, and I think, like any type of either business or that has been multi-generationally, each generation has a tendency to um, develop and improve on the last generation, but
Mhm.
that doesn't always go easy or well, right? Because
Mhm.
it's, well, we've always done it this way, but now the new generation wants to do it, new way with technology or whatever, whatever that may be. And so it helps out from that element regarding how to navigate, negotiate through those, how to be stronger. It's kind of like that idea of the idea of like a rope. Each cord by itself may not be strong, but together they can be
Mhm.
stronger. And so I think there's a little bit of that element as well. So
Yeah.
Kaylene, you have been involved with an organization here in Rockford called Rockford Promise. And so tell us a little bit about that, and how did you find your way into that? And what is Rockford Promise first? And then how did you find your way there?
Yeah, absolutely. Rockford Promise is a location-based scholarship program right here in Rockford, as you might guess from our name. And we are really focused on ensuring collegiate access and success for local students. And we find that can transform neighborhoods and families here locally, and it can also serve as a really powerful economic driver for our community. Because we know that education is a very powerful tool that can really transform, a lot of things here in our area. So we're absolutely so proud and pleased to be working in that space. And
Gotcha.
then,
No,
oh,
keep
sorry,
going.
go ahead.
Yep, keep going. Nope, go
I
ahead.
was just going to say kind of how I got into it. I had been doing some grant writing, and so through those services, got to know Elaine Breck. She served as the longtime executive director. She did a 100% volunteer based. Many people don't know that Rockford Promise has actually been in existence back since 2006. And that was when a really forward thinking group of local citizens took a look at some other things that were happening across the nation. They were really inspired by what was happening in Kalamazoo, Michigan. They had an anonymous donor step up and help found their local promise program. And really, kind of the thought behind that was going into communities that had been heavily manufacturing based, but who were now, through all the shifts and the globalization of some of those processes, were really struggling to keep their local citizens there, local, and to keep them employed and just keep their community thriving. So that was kind of some of the thought process behind it. So when local leaders looked at Kalamazoo and their efforts, they were really inspired by what it could do here for us in Rockford as well. So they started that back in 2006, and Elaine was part of that group who really carried that vision forward. So I was so lucky and pleased to have been mentored by her, and started working with her more kind of on the grant side, and then eventually that led into full-time employment.
So and from what I understand with Rockford Promise and with some of the students that I've worked with from a counseling perspective that have um, then had the opportunity to be a participant is so. And this is where I'll just tell you what I know about it, and then you
Sure.
add to it from there.
Yeah.
From the one particular student, he he went to one of the local high schools here in RPS, Rockford Public School System, and had a night. He wanted to be an educator, he wanted to be a coach, and wanted to be an educator, and so this was a good fit for him. And then Rockford Promise then was able to help fund him going to Rockford University. And then well, I just saw him recently, and now he is working at the high school that he graduated from. And I don't believe at this point he's coaching yet, but I do believe that's still on his radar to coach. So that's one of my experiences with someone who went through Rockford Promise. What am I missing? What to add to that?
Sure. No, that's a perfect story, and one that's increasingly common in the best possible way. It's a lot of local students who are facing barriers for a variety of reasons. Some of that is purely economic. College is increasingly expensive. We see the national headlines all the time. And so families are having to ask themselves some really tough questions like, is it worth it? Um, so fortunately for students in our community, though, there is someone who can help, and that is Rockford Promise. We take care of the tuition costs for students at Rock Valley College, Rockford University, or Northern Illinois University. So there's some other qualifying details, and anyone can go to our website and take a look at those. But really, that's what we want to see. We want to remove some of the barriers for local students so they can achieve college if that's within their plans and their dreams for their future. So we're very passionate about that. And like you said, these are our local students. I run into Promise students everywhere I go, all throughout the community. When I go to Starbucks through the drive-through in the morning, occasionally I see one of our Rockford Promise scholars there. If I'm eating out at a local restaurant, I run into them there. If I'm shopping, if I'm getting groceries, anywhere you go, our community is full of amazing students who just want a chance, right? A chance at their educational dreams and the professional future that they hope to have for themselves and their families.
And with that, which is just such an amazing, opportunity for some of these students that may not necessarily um, believe that for different reasons,
Mm-hmm.
education, or maybe they're the first generation to go to school at higher level of education. Is it only for them to get a degree in education, or is there other degrees that they can acquire as well?
Oh, no, 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 no. It's broad. So any degree that is offered by the three colleges I mentioned, RU, RVC, and NIU, any of them are available to them. So it's not just education, although education is one of our top majors that our students choose. The other ones are engineering and business, yeah, and nursing. So those tend to be the top four between those. But then there's anything and everything in between as well.
And then for a student that is part of the Rockford Promise, obviously it is to attend class. I'm assuming there's an expectation of a certain GPA to continue being awarded that. And then is there an obligation after graduation?
Sure. No, great question. Yeah. So there are a few things that they have to do to qualify, even, to access the scholarship. So there's a number of things there. But then once they're in the program, we have all sorts of scholar support pieces wrapped around that, because we know getting to college isn't the only barrier for students. Like you mentioned, many of them are first generation college students, so they may lack someone, within their family or at home who is familiar with the process or knows how to navigate it. And it truly is a completely different process than students are used to. It's very different from high school in how things are set up within that system. So it's something where we found students really benefit from having kind of a kind guide within that space. So we have staff members at each of our collegiate locations, just again, as another layer of support for these students. And then additionally, on top of that, we also have community members who volunteer to mentor students during their freshman year of college. And why freshman year specifically is, that's often when students really face some of those deep challenges of transitioning to college, is in that first year. the academics might be more challenging for them, or it might be, trying to figure out, how do I go to my professor and how do I advocate for myself, or what do I do if I have an issue with financial aid and I have to ask some deep questions. So we have those multi layers of support so that students can, throughout their 3 years, 4 years, however long they're in school, have just another layer of support. And then you asked about, what about after? So we do not require them to return to the community, but we do deeply work towards that. I think that's one of the pieces that I find so incredible, is that this type of support really speaks highly of our community, because I don't see this as any one person's. I view it really as a community effort, and just a layer of care and concern about our students, our kids right here in this area, and just really looking ahead towards our future, and ensuring that our community is a really great place to live far into the future. And so I think providing those educational pieces is key to that. And then I would say the second layer that we're starting to add is connecting those students with job opportunities right back here in Rockford, because I think that's part of it too, right? You might pass by these various buildings as you drive around town on a day-to-day basis, but often students or even adults living here don't always know, the ins and outs of what those businesses do on a day-to-day basis. So this year we've started doing tours. So the students, say like an engineering student, they have the opportunity to go into Collins and do a tour and kind of get a sense of what it's like. And we want to connect them with internships and all sorts of things like that, just so that they know about the incredible opportunities that are available right back here in our community.
Well, as you were talking and sharing about what is Rockford Promise and what it can do for individuals, I was just thinking, you said something about the idea that we know that just getting that diploma, right, having the piece of paper that says that you've now completed either a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree or whatever it may be, we know that that in itself isn't really where the value is. It's really about, what did they learn along the journey? What did they really take in, to be a lifelong learner, the relationships that they created during their internship with their professors, with other students. It's really about those things are the essential ingredients to be able to then leave school and then go into the workforce, go into the community. And I think this particular show, if we talked about it, is about the hero's journey. This idea that we're called to something, or we get a call, and sometimes that call may be to move on to something else, or maybe it's to develop something and grow out of our normal or our familiar. Sometimes we ignore that, and then we instead of accepting that invitation, we get thrust into it. And as you know, with some of the students you work with, they may be very excited and encouraged and supported and in the spring of their senior year, and then when it comes to the fall, when it now becomes real, all of a sudden, instead of being in their familiar, now they're thrust into this new initiation phase of their life. And for some, it may be an okay transition, and for others it's not so easy, and it really is taking them out of their comfort zone. So when you think about students, and obviously you've been doing this now with Rockford Promise for a while, so when you think of students that have really had that transition to who they were, and you met them or got to know them as a high school student, and now they went through the journey, and maybe there were setbacks and they really had to press and learn some things about themselves that they didn't actually know. But then you see them years later after they graduated and now are in the community working. Yeah, if you and you don't have to share names, but just if any stories come to mind, what students of their story pops in your mind?
Yeah. So one student that certainly came to mind, she would tell you right away that she's a first generation college student. No one else in her family had attended college, and so when she was looking at that, when she was in high school, she wasn't even sure if something like that would be possible. Certainly on multiple layers, but just the cost that you always hear about in attending college, it can be quite daunting. So she thought, just looking at her family situation, college would never be an option for her. Then in her senior year in high school, she heard about Rockford Promise, and she was like, "What? What is this?" She thought it was even maybe too good to be true. She was like, What is this?" But the more she looked into it, she talked to her high school counselors, and they're like, "No, this is legit. This is for local students." And so she's like, "Well, nothing to lose here. I'll just go ahead and fill out these forms and do that." And she won one of our scholarships to Rockford University. Went the full 4 years, had multiple layers of support. Our students at RU were absolutely so proud. They have a graduation rate of 92%, which, as you might guess, is almost double what the national rate is. It's just phenomenal. All of our collegiate partners have been so wonderful to work with, and just we're all working towards the same thing, which is to see these students succeed. But during her time there at RU, she was able to secure an internship, and she worked through that internship, and that really gave her a pathway, so to speak, into discovering more about where her interests were, and if this was kind of the right area or not. Right, some of that's it's almost like dating a little bit, right? You have
Mm,
to kind of venture forth into the process and see, is there something here or not. So in the internships allowed her to do that, and so then after college, after she graduated, she secured a job at that place, and
mm,
now she's launched in her career. So, and it's I think what always impresses me is our students always respond to the needs and the demands of the community, I think, in such an interesting way. So, having been with Rockford Promise for 5, 6 years now, um, and being part of the interviews, the scholarship interviews with students, you get to hear their stories and their passions and their dreams. And I just find it so interesting that they're often rising to the needs that they see firsthand, right? So, in the midst of COVID, certainly mental health was and is a huge piece. And I just, as I was sitting in multiple interviews, I kept hearing students seeing that need, hearing that need, and wanting to answer that call. So, I just think that's so incredible that our students, they can see that they want to be the ones to help solve,
mm.
local challenges and local problems that we're having. So it's just really inspiring to see their heart for our community.
Well, I think that's definitely an awesome story. I
Mhm.
earlier today I was listening to an interview that Arnold Schwarzenegger he was being interviewed, and he, a few months ago I had watched the Netflix documentary about his life, and being a former bodybuilder, I've Arnold has always been, as a bodybuilder, his world. I've always followed him, and obviously I don't. There's been life choices that he's made along the way, and he has lots of remorse regarding that. If you watch the documentary, it goes into that. But he had shared something that I thought was it reminded I was reminded of that when you were just talking, that about the impact that some individuals had as a result of the pandemic and COVID.
Mhm.
I think there was this aspect for some people where th- there was this major social emotionally step backwards, that instead of using it as an opportunity to push forward and do hard things, there was almost this global place of just somehow be risk free. Take the foot off the accelerator and take and be and try to, how do we avoid any, mitigate any type of risks. And I think that has really been, I think, and sometimes it's perpetuated by some families and parents, where we want to remove obstacles of our kids so that they, won't have those barriers, when in reality, those obstacles and barriers may very well be the teacher that helps them develop the resilience. So then when a future hard thing happens, they're they're not knocked off their horse. They're recognize that they have something to draw from. And I think, a first generation student taking that challenge on and seeing that through and working through being uncomfortable and doing hard things. And hard things obviously don't have to be just physical hard things. They can be, emotional and mental hard things. And being able to persist, that is what then allows us to have a level of self-competency and self-confidence to go, okay, well, when things get hard, I've done hard things, so I'm going to be okay with this thing that's hard. And I think, Rockford Promise obviously gives individuals the opportunity to do that. Yes, it's helping financially and helping, support them along the way, but at the end of the day, it's they have to go on their own journey with it, and what they do along that journey is going to be their story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we say at orientation, we're helping open the store, but you're the one who has to walk through it, and you're the one who has to do the work. Like, you're the one who has to show up. So we're going to cheer along your efforts. We're not going to. It's not going to be easy, but you won't be alone within it.
Yeah. And I think that element of it is, letting students know that it's not going to necessarily be easy. It is going to be stretching them, because that's the purpose of it. And that's okay. We don't learn, grow, and develop if we're doing the same thing over and over again. And it's only when we have to face those new challenges and new things, that's when we grow and develop. And if we're able to string those together toward a vision of something. I think you said something earlier about that particular student. You talked about her being curious in her internship, and that curiosity then led to something that she thought she might be able to attach herself to. And I think that's key, because I always get nervous when someone tells me they know what they want to do. And they're I'm like, well, oh, okay, well, how about if we just, give ourselves a little bit of a break and say, what direction you want to go in,
Mm-hmm.
because you're 16. How it's maybe thinking what you want to do at 16, maybe that's going to be just a little bit creating a blind spot. I would much rather have someone say their desire is to go to medical school and then see, versus saying what specific type of doctor they want to be. I'm like, maybe we'll see. There's a lot of things that you're going to expose to that may influence that. Well,
Yeah.
Kaylene, thank you so much for what you do. Not just for it, within our church, and I see you and John are engaged and involved with our church community, but the greater Rockford community as well, and making a difference by providing opportunities for students to stretch their wings and be able to write a story that they're going to be proud of, and that they can change their stars up to this point. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on today.
So Kayleen, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, or get a hold of you specifically and learn more about Rockford Promise, or just, or maybe support it, what would be the best way for them to get a hold of you or get a hold of Rockford Promise?
Yeah, sure. The best, easiest place is through our website, rockfordpromise.org. All our contact information, our photos, everything are there on the website. You can also see a lot of the photos of our amazing students, and learn a little bit more about them and their stories. We also have a tab if anyone's interested in donating, like you said, or if they're interested in signing up to become a mentor. There's also an application there on our website. So that's a great place to connect with us.
Awesome. Well, Kaylene, thank you again so much for what you do, and especially leading Rockford Promise and being able to be available to help change lives and with our young adults. So thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So for anyone who's listening, who you may know someone that is a young adult that may be questioning if college is for them, or they are questioning that because of some barriers, I would highly encourage you to encourage them to reach out to Kaylene or Rockford Promise, just to see what options that they may have that they may not realize are available for them. Um, we all know that we can, when people are struggling, there's different ways that we can be a light or give hope for individuals in the darkness. So please pass this information along to someone that may need to hear it. As always, thank you for being here, and I look forward to being with you next week.